Today, let's try to gain some insights into the information storage and retrieval systems and also indexing theories. Information storage and retrieval system is a part and parcel of the communication system, as a matter of fact. Now, it is also called as information storage and retrieval system, and some it also call it as information retrieval system. Essentially, there are two important components are there. The first one is information storage, a database where we really preserve the information, or a surrogate of the information sources, followed by the information retrieval. This is essentially information retrieval is largely by means of some indexing techniques. Precisely, information storage and retrieval system is defined as a process of recovering specific piece of information from the stored data. There shall be a storage, a stored database is there from which we would like to identify and retrieve a specific item, specific document, specific piece of information from a mass of stored database. It is also defined as a process comprising of selection, representation, storage, organization and accessing of information to meet the specific needs of the users. This is precisely what we call it as information storage and retrieval systems. As just now I mentioned, there are essentially two components are there. Slightly we are really been elaborating it. Now, information storage and retrieval system comprises of three essentially: information resource building or collection. That's number one. That is really been resulting in creation of its surrogate in the form of a database. That's what we really calling it as database creation and maintenance of the database, updating, maintaining, etc. And of course, the last component is going to be information retrieval and passing on the information or information items or the pieces of documents, etc. to the required users. This is precisely information storage and retrieval like. There are better definitions are also really been there, given by Morse has given a very simple and easy definition. What he says, what searching and retrieval of information from a storage according to the subject specification. So, the information retrieval what we are talking is essentially it is retrieving of information according to the specific subject of interest of the user. Similarly, one of the important the information scientist Lancaster, F.W. Lancaster, he also defines it another way, that there are the activities involved in searching a body of literature in order to find items or the documents that deal with a particular subject area. So, honestly, information retrieval is what we are talking about is only now the user's specific subject requirements are met through the information retrieval. So, there shall be a database comprising of the surrogates or supplements to the actual original documents, and they have been really been searched for retrieving or identifying and taking out a specific items without any confusion or delays in that. So, the basic purpose of information storage and retrieval system, it retrieve specific facts or data can be retrieved for information storage and retrieval systems like, that is supplying to the user with the information in response to the subject inquiry, subject requirements. So, it is also nothing but it is organizing the knowledge for subject retrieval. So, in information storage retrieval system, what is really being done is we have been organizing information, we have been indexing the information, we have been creating a database of the actual documents with the index terms, and then of course we are searching that. That's what exactly. So, it is a system of organizing the knowledge, organizing the collections for subject retrieval. So, honestly, the very important aspect component in information storage retrieval system is subject searches are really been subject wise inquiries are met through the information storage and retrieval systems. When I am saying subject and subject, there are other things are also there, like we have a library, catalogs are there. Essentially, for documents we have got author, title, etc. are really going to be the most important access points through which the catalog normally provides access for the users through the known names of the authors of the documents, to the known names of the title of the documents, sometimes of course subject keywords also including series and so on. So, now it is really going to be essentially what we are talking in ISRS is nothing but it is the retrieval of information against the users request on a specific subject. This is what really going to happen in this. So in this, what really happen is, either we will be providing the users with the document what they are asking for, or sometimes we may also be providing the information what they really want. So these are either information or the documents can be provided in information storage and retrieval systems. So it serves, honestly, it serves as a bridge between the world of authors who wrote the documents, and then of course the world of users. These are the two streams are there. So the information storage and retrieval system is really going to help the users in finding what they want from the whole mass of literature that is really been produced by the authors. Hence what we said is, it's a kind of bridging tool, a mechanism between the kind of the authors and their works and also the users' information requirements. There are other things are also there, what we can really call it as bibliographic retrieval system. So they retrieve only bibliographic the document items, including what you can, I mean to say that the references to the documents are retrieved in bibliographic retrieval. The references followed by, in some cases, like in abstracting publications, even also besides the bibliographic details what we are calling as references of the documents, followed by that its abstracts are also been available essentially in the tools like abstracting publications. So these are the two things that can be there. Of course, there are other things there are fact retrieval, only the facts and data are there, fact retrieval systems are there. So there are document retrieval, so you are going to retrieve only documents like, so these kind of things are there. Now there can be any items like the quantitative data or the text or the descriptive information, drawings, graphs, okay, then maps, etc. can also be part and parcel of the database that can be used in information storage and retrieval system. Since if it is a kind of facts are there, we are going to retrieve only the facts. If the database contains only charts and maps are there, what we are going to retrieve should be only maps and charts. So this is what in some cases the names and location of the people, their institutions, etc. can be also. In some cases we can only retrieve only bibliographic references, and in some cases only subject index terms can also be retrieved. So it includes honestly all the operations involved in supplying the user with the information in response to the specific information requirements. It includes both retrospective searches and also the current searches. So there is depending on the database what is exactly the collection contained in the database, or the database what is really representing the collection. If you are really been the database what is prepared for the ISRS system, if it is dealing with the current publications, naturally you are retrieving the current information. If it is also dealing with the retrospective and the past dated documents also, you can retrieve the retrospective documents also. So both the things it can really handle. So then it includes both retrospective and also current information, what exactly the database contains in it, and information retrieval operations are situated in the middle of the documentary chain, and that is information chain, and they prepare a way for dissemination of that. So the information retrieval system is really going to be functioning in between the documentary chain. So between the information sources and the information seekers like. So that's what exactly the role of the information storage and retrieval system really functions. Then user services are dependent on information retrieval only. Now whatever the services that our libraries are really providing, now it is based on the graphic material and the literature and documents available in the information centers or libraries. Now the information retrieval system is really going to retrieve what users are really requiring. So the most of the services what we are providing in libraries only user interest services, like with the basing on the graphic material. So the graphic material the kind of identification and retrieving and providing to user, it naturally helps only through the information storage and retrieval systems. Therefore information storage systems that units or sections shall always be there, part and parcel of all the information centers and libraries. The different functions of information retrieval systems, what we can really say is it to identify the sources of information that is relevant to the user's request, analyzes the contents of the documents. If that is not really done, we cannot really index. If we cannot really provide an index terms for a particular content of the document, we will not be able to retrieve it. That's what exactly it also has. Part and parcel of it, the program is, it analyzes the contents of the documents. When I say the content is nothing but it is the subject content, the subject matter of the content in the documents. Like the next important aspect is it represents the contents of the analyzed documents with a kind of keywords that really matches with the actual subject content in the document. Then of course, to analyze the user queries in the similar way, you have to, user has got a kind of information requirement that also is to be really converted into searchable keywords, similar to that of how we have really converted the documents into the subject key terms. We also have to really convert the user request also into subject key terms, so that the matching will really take place, and the matter the really matchings are there, then we can really retrieve the information and provide to our users. This is what normally happens as far as the information retrieval systems are concerned. Now, what are the different tools that can be really used in information retrieval systems? Like, traditionally there are many tools are there. Something like what we can really say is end of the book index. We have got an index at the end of the book. It really retrieves only information, helps in retrieving information what is contained in that particular specific document. We have got library catalogs are there, bibliographic files are there. So what is contained in the library can be retrieved using the library catalogs or bibliographic catalog cards, etc. Like, now we can also have what we can really say is retrieval by means of indexes or printed catalog. There are also printed catalog for different databases. Okay, like something like some of the the earliest, the even present also, the national bibliographies, etc. We have got printed catalogs or bibliographies are there. So from there we can really try to retrieve what is there in those kind of bibliographies. Retrieval by means of dictionary index or the interim index. So we can prepare a dictionary kind of index terms for the either for one single document or for the collection of documents, and you can retrieve on that. Then retrieval by means of optical coincidence, etc. So optical coincidence methods are the, we will really discuss about it little later. It falls into the purview of the post coordinate indexing system, and optical coincidence mechanisms are etc. Like where we are really going to use uniterms to indicate the subjects, and then say the user combines those uniterms of required terms, and then he will be really trying to really match the documents containing those concepts in that. That's the retrieval is what we can really call it as. Optical coincidence mechanism is one kind of mechanism. It's a post coordinate indexing system. In this, what normally happens is we are trying to really indicate by means of making punches or holes in a kind of cards, and those cards, those punches are really going to indicate the actual document number which is really dealing with a particular concept or a subject, what is desired by the user. So this is a kind of another new techniques are there. Then OPACs are nothing but this online public access catalogs. This library catalogs which are available in your online process, where people can really access them either within the library or outside the library. People can really try to find out what the library possesses can be really found from the OPACs. Then of course there are other mechanisms like there are subject guides, gateways. DOI is digital object identifiers. So then there are some directories, etc. are there. Such kind of things, they are, DOI is really going to give a unique identification number for the digital objects available on the internet. Okay. So that is, digital documents are given some specific numbers through the DOI specific numbers, which is really given by the DOI registry, and that kind of document can automatically retrieved without any kind of without any difficulty. If we really know the DOI number, that number is a unique method of retrieving information. That is also another method of information retrieval techniques or the tools. Like, what are the activities that are there in information storage and retrieval system is, we have a kind of collection of documents available in the library. That's what I was mentioning in the beginning. There are three components. Document database is there, document collection building was the first component what I was mentioning. The document collection is there. That particular document collection, those documents, we are really going to analyze the documents, what normally we can call it as the content analysis of the document. The content analysis is nothing but the subject analysis. This particular document, a particular document, what are the subject issues, concepts that are really available in a particular document. We are trying to analyze them. That's the first important aspect. This identification of the concepts, the point of view that are really being discussed in a particular document is really going to be converted into the index terms using a terminology. We are in indexing systems, we are going to use some indexing language. Indexing language is nothing but it's a controlled vocabulary tool. We are really saying controlled vocabulary means it's a kind of standard terminology is used to indicate each and every concept that can be really discussed in a particular discipline or subject or in the universe of subjects. So, the terminological tools are there to indicate the concepts that are contained in the documents, which we really come to know only on analyzing the documents. Then of course, using the terminological tools like controlled vocabulary, what we are talking here is there could be thesaurus is one kind of things, subject headings list another kind of things, or descriptors. Normally what the descriptors are nothing but they are the controlled terminological words. Like descriptors are nothing but they are the index terms. They are the keywords, standard key terms, we call them as descriptors. So, once we analyze the content of the document, once we understand the subject issues discussed in the document, we are trying to indicate those concepts by their respective coextensive terms. So, that is what exactly we need the terminology, that is what we call it as the controlled vocabulary is really used to indicate the concept or subject by way of terms. There can be other methods are also there. In a library classification scheme, what really happens is we try to really indicate those concepts by way of some class numbers, some subject numbers. Precisely, honestly, what we can do in this kind of index systems, we are really going to use the index terms, the subject key terms, the descriptors. Then the next component is really going to be preparing the descriptor indexed cards or indexed file we are preparing. So, once these you identify the document having these concepts, you represent the concepts by the key terms or descriptors, and then you maintain a kind of file of that. That is the file what we really call the storage database, the database of records of information. So, this is surrogates, supplements to the actual documents may be in the library shelves, but you have got a database maybe in other kind of cabinet, okay, in other kind of source, maybe on your computer here. So, that is what you are really going to search like. So, this is a kind of storage is really been created with the concept terms. These concept terms are representing the documents what they have got in our the kind of the collection, and these surrogate things we really try to, the user will really ask some kind of the information by kind of subject requirement. That is what exactly we say the user subject query. Say I want information on wages for the women laborers, agricultural laborers. So, women agriculture laborers. So, this is a kind of there are a kind of a composite concepts are there. We have to really create a kind of search query and construct a query, and then that query also we have to really convert it into searchable standard key terms vocabulary, because we have used a kind of vocabulary, controlled vocabulary to create a database of the documents. Then similarly, with the user's query has also been converted into a searchable the standard terms. Then we really go for that. Then you express the kind of things, and then you, once these kind of matchings are there, that the user's query key terms matching with the terms that are there in the database, that is really going to be retrieved by us, and then that you search and then retrieve those documents, and those documents you identify them and provide to the users. This is what normally happens as far as your the information retrieval system is really concerned. Yeah, the evaluation of information storage and retrieval systems is another important component in ISRS system. Now, what is exactly the purpose of evaluation of ISR systems and what it is? So, when I say what do you mean by evaluation of ISR systems, you are just trying to assess the performance and effectiveness of information storage and retrieval system, how effective it is, and is it really giving the expected the performance or not. That you really would like to measure and assess by means of using certain parameters, certain criteria. And it's a kind of diagnosing the kind of poor performance or otherwise of the information storage system. That is really essential. If a system once we really designed with a particular purpose, now how effectively it is really meeting the purpose of our users is essentially going to be very important. And it helps to find out the reasons why the performance is poor if the system is not performing up to our expectations. Followed by that, it also helps us to take necessary remedial measures and to improve the performance so that the ISR systems will really function in a better way. This is what honestly why we have to really go for the evaluation. So, evaluation of ISR systems, they could be sometimes subjective as a matter of fact. When you say subjective, it is not really going to be a suitable the concept. Subjective evaluation is always subjective, but when I say subjective means the users of the information center, the end users, they really give their subjective impressions on the performance of the information storage retrieval systems. Essentially using a questionnaire, we try to circulate a questionnaire, how effectively the system is information storage retrieval system is really functioning, what problems are there, is it really consuming too much of time, is it not really able to support you in retrieving information as you really desire, etc. So, what are the output, what you are expecting, is it really been given by the system or not. So, these kind of things are really assessed only by verifying with the end users of the information center, essentially through a questionnaire. That's normally goes on as far as evaluation of information systems are really concerned. So, in evaluation there are different criteria there. So, the criteria are, of course, I will really state them. So, the evaluation could be in terms of the effectiveness of the system. Okay, you are assessing, you are evaluating how effective it is. Then of course, in terms of meeting the user requirements, is it really meeting the requirements of the users or not. And then is it cost effective or not. So, we have spent some money on that, is it really worth of that particular money, is it cost benefit, is it really, so we spent about 100 rupees or 1000 rupees on that, are we really getting little more than that, is it really maybe 1000 rupees you spent and getting about 5000 rupees worth of the information is going to be very, very ideal like. So, is the cost benefit analysis studies or cost effectiveness or at the same time the effectiveness of the system, etc. This is really assessed using some criteria. The assessment is really done by the end users, as I said, end users. The assessment is normally by the subject specialist, the kind of the users only. Now, we have listed some kind of criteria, some kind of the parameters. Now, if the information storage system, the coverage of the information in that, the coverage of the documents, if it is not really comprehensive and if it is not really reflecting the current information, the up to date information, naturally it's not honestly not the defect or the fault of the information retrieval system as a matter of fact, but the coverage of the resources in the database is only that much. And that is one important aspect naturally we have to take into consideration, and we have to improve it by getting the current literature, up to date literature information, and of course, in the required areas we naturally need to have the comprehensive collection. Instead of having a selective collection, a small collection, the users naturally need to have a bigger, wider, comprehensive collection, and of course, the collection must be current in nature. That is really very, very important aspect as far as that is concerned. The second important criteria is called recall. In the database, we have got a lot many information sources or resources, or information sources representations are there in the database. When you go and search a kind of database, information retrieval system, and when you try to really get information, there are, imagine that there are 50 documents or the books or the journal articles are there, maybe let me say on a subject like digital libraries. 50 documents are in our database. When you really wanted to search and find out on digital libraries, all those 50 documents are really been shown to the user or not. This is what recall. So, recall is calling back all the resources available. So, what is the extent of recall value of the information storage retrieval system is going to be very, very important aspect. We have lot many documents are there in the subject, but when you really search on the subject keywords, if you don't get all of them, is really going to be difficult situation. Sometimes what really happens, we may be indexing the documents by specific topic or the concept, sometimes on a broader concept also. So when you really index on a broader concept, and when you are searching on a specific area, something like light or optics is there. Now that particular, when you are, some books you entered under light or optics, at the same time some literature also is available in the textbook of physics, you have got something on light also, that we are missing, though the information is available. So there is a kind of mechanism is there, we can really broaden your search query by broadening the scope of the index terms, and then if you can really try to retrieve it, probably the recall value will naturally grow. So recall or calling back or retrieving all the information on a particular subject, what is available in the database, that naturally should be really called back, retrieved. That's a very important aspect. At the same time, the precision is also important. Recall and precision are really going to be the two important measures in evaluation of information storage and retrieval systems. Many times people really say that recall and precision are really going to be inversely proportional to one another. So when you really want to improve the recall value, calling back all the literature, probably the precision is missing. When you really want to have the precisely on a specific area, probably recall is really going to be missing. Recall when enhanced, precision is missing. When precision is really value is enhanced, recall is really been reduced or minimized. Like therefore, what really happens is recall and precision are inversely proportional to one another. This is a kind of more or less a principle is really been established. Like so, precision is how accurately, how precisely what you really want is required. Say for example, when I really wanted to get some information on a particular specific subject, let me say something on the nutrition, then I may be how precisely I am getting information only on nutrition. There could be diets, there could be food, there could be nutrition, all these things are really coming to me. Then I am really missing the precision on that. So I want precisely, very accurately, pinpointedly the information only on that particular concept, not on the allied and related areas. This is really been another important aspect. So we have to also take care of how the precisely or with what kind of the precision value we will be really retrieving information is another very important aspect. That's how these are the two important aspects always talked by in the evaluation of information storage retrieval systems. The another important aspect is that response time taken for answering the queries of the users. So if you really want information, what information you really want, if the system is not really been able to support you giving instantly or immediately, probably the users are dissatisfied. That is to be always controlled. So the how much time, the time delays are to be really overcome. We have to take care of that. This is the response time in answering the queries to the users is another important aspect. At the same time, the user efforts involved to attain high recall and precision. How much effort they have to really put up? Is it really so much of effort, or is it very comfortable, or is it what normally we call, is it the user friendly, user supportive? This kind of the information retrieval system is always expected as far as information retrieval systems are concerned. So this is what evaluation of information storage system. As we have been talking about it, that the information storage and retrieval systems are really very important in between the world of information or world of the authors and also the world of the information seekers. The information storage and retrieval systems are really going to be very important, and all the libraries and all the information centers, they naturally maintain a unit or the information storage and retrieval systems. They really maintain in that. Otherwise, we will not be able to really do any service to any users. So users, after all, they really want information from the libraries. The information retrieval is taken care by the ISR systems. Therefore, all the services rendered by the libraries are de facto, they are really been only based on the information retrieval systems. Now how effective is the system is functioning does always makes a difference of how good a particular library is. So this is what precisely as far as ISR systems are concerned. Then we will really move on to the next concept, that is indexing. Now indexing systems and information retrieval systems are not really two different or distinct things. Like what we have been doing in information retrieval systems is nothing but we have been indexing and then we are trying to really retrieve only. So we are trying to really learn, in a kind of, this information storage and retrieval system concept, we are also trying to really learn in the indexing. So information retrieval is primarily it is capable of retrieving documents in answer to a specific query of the user. That is what is really done also because in information retrieval system what we did is only we have made a content analysis and we really made the content representation by the keywords or subject terms, controlled vocabulary, and then we maintain a database. Then user has come and users requirements are really been converted into the searchable key terms, and then we try to really match these users the search words as well as the database the indexed words, and then the matchings we are really retrieving and providing the user. This is what exactly happens in information retrieval systems. Like there are also systems called document retrieval. So where you are retrieving only a document may be a book, maybe an article, maybe a pamphlet, maybe a standard, maybe a patent. So it's when retrieving a document, it's document retrieval. Okay. When you are retrieving a fact, that's a data retrieval. Okay. When you are retrieving a reference item, bibliographic reference of the particular document, who is the author, what's the title, what's the journal name, what's the volume, these are all details of a particular the document. So document details when you are trying to retrieve, it is a reference retrieval. When you are retrieving a fact or actual data, that is data retrieval. So it can be data retrieval, it could be reference retrieval, it could be document retrieval, it could be of course broadly what we really call it as information storage and retrieval systems like. So the principal index in information storage and retrieval systems is nothing but subject index. We have been talking about this. So information storage and retrieval systems essentially they are meant for retrieving of information against the subject inquiry of the users. And the techniques of entering these documents into such an index is what we can really call it as, this is called subject indexing. So information storage retrieval systems they naturally really perform the subject indexing kind of works only. Let us try to really understand what is an index. It is essentially a filter. Its purpose is to let through the wanted documents and to hold back the unwanted ones. To control what is not required, this index should really stop it, and at the same time it should allow the users to really open up what is really required by them. So the Latin term indicate, it means that the index has really come from the word Latin term indicare, and it means that to indicate or to discover or to disclosure or an informer. So that is what exactly index is really going to do. So it can be through a catalog, it can be a list, it can be an inventory tool, it can be a register, it can be a table of contents, is also an index. Okay. A guide to literature is also an index. It is a systematic guide to items contained in or concepts derived from a collection. So it could be a systematic guide to a items, that is concepts contained in either a single book, when you can say it could be also an index which you can really find at the end of the book. It could be a collection of documents, what are the concepts and subjects such issues are there, I think for the, so it can also be applied for either for a single document, for a collection of documents also can be an index. It is an index entry is normally it is a term entry, and that merely locates a subject or a topic or a name. So by index what you are trying to relocate is, now they are all they indicate the concepts contained in the documents, they indicate the subjects contained in the documents. So they also indicate other things also, other things like something like about the people, about the author, all these things can also be there in a kind of index. Now the database what you prepared, so what is there in the database is really going to be retrieved or searched like. So this is what goes on in index. So the ancient library catalogs are going to be the olden days indexes for the collections. Now the C.A. Cutter, Charles Semi Cutter was the first person to make an attempt to generate some kind of subject rules like. Now this is what honestly another important definition is, a systematic guide to the location of words, concepts and other items or publications contained in the documents. Okay. So this helps the user to easily locate them, retrieve them. So in index there are two things are there. One is you are indexing the word, At the same time, you are trying to really provide its references or the other, the kind of issue by which you will be able to really retrieve the document. So, the concept terms followed by the references, or maybe its action number, maybe its call number, so that you will be able to really locate it. So, these two things are part and parcel. Index terms followed by the references or the kind of another hook term that is by which you will be able to retrieve it. It is a method of document, this is what exactly. So, in indexing what we are doing is you are simply representing the subject of the document. Therefore, you really want to say it is a kind of method of document representation to specify exactly the content of the documents. So, this is what normally happens. Indexing is a kind of techniques by which we are also trying to indicate the prepare a database for retrieval of the information or documents, etc. This is what normally goes on. In all the information retrieval systems and indexing systems, the one essential component is the content analysis. Content is the subject. So, content analysis means subject analysis only. It is a fundamental and a prerequisite, an essential requisite that is to be really performed in advance before we really do some indexing. Now, for indexing what we do is we use some indexing language. What is indexing language? It is a set of indexing terms used in a particular indexing system. So, like in other languages we use some words and terms, and you talk any language. Same is the case in indexing language also. We are really going to use a set of words and terms, terminology that we normally call it as indexing system, which is indexing language, which we are really using in information storage retrieval systems. Like the language could be a natural language as we really speak and write in books, etc., etc. It could be a controlled or structured language as we are really been using in indexing system. So, indexing systems normally use the controlled vocabulary. The structured language is really used. In some instances, the indexing language, all the classification schemes are also called as indexing language only, because they index the concepts and the subjects of the documents, of course, not by terms, but by the class numbers. So, that is the only difference. Otherwise, indexing is either by terms or by the numbers. The numbers was really used in class number, terms are used in indexing language, other kinds of indexing language like. So, indexing language can be available in a prepared form for adaptation, which we really call it as a classification scheme or a thesaurus or a subject headings list, or it could be specially designed for the system when we really required. The other aspect is, what do you mean by the natural language and what do you mean by the controlled vocabulary? Natural language is nothing but the language as the authors they write in the books. It is the language what we really speak when we really want to communicate any issues, like either orally or in a document form. What we really do is natural language, whereas controlled vocabulary is something different. There is some kind of an element of artificiality is in that. Now, the controlled vocabulary forms a subset of the natural language. Natural language is the whole mass of terms. Out of those terms, we are trying to identify some particular terms as standard terms, which are really used as the index terms or a descriptors in our indexing system, which we really call it as a controlled vocabulary. It is a kind of controlled language, unlike the natural language. Okay. Now, it is a subset of a natural language, and but they are not the same as natural language. It is a restricted vocabulary, it is a controlled vocabulary. The vocabulary of an indexing language has to be honestly very precise and exact, because in a controlled vocabulary there are no conjunctions, interjunctions, articles, prepositions, etc., etc., what we normally use in indexing language. Now, in natural language that will not be there. So, the controlled vocabulary has got a kind of artificiality in it, followed by that it controls the synonyms and homonyms problem. Now, it will be also providing a large many number of cross references for that, so that there are some kind of rejected terms are there, some kind of the terms that are used as standard authoritative terms are there. So you really want to connect them by using the cross references. So for example, the kind of birds is a kind of non-standard term. Standard term is aves. So birds see or see also aves. That kind of interlinking of the terms will, because users may also really come with their the known terms in order to. Then there are other things are also there. Now sometimes we really indexing language have got a syntax for that, is very important, which is then of course they had kind of in order to provide support. Now we also use orderly rotation of the index terms is also another important concept like. So this is what are the characteristics of indexing language. Now let us try to know something about thesaurus. Now this thesaurus term is always been I think frequently used name. Many people really think thesaurus is a kind of dictionary. I think that could be a kind of an impression that what we normally call it. But coming back to the indexing systems and information storage systems, now it is a controlled vocabulary. It is a controlled vocabulary tool that is really used in indexing systems. It is used in information storage systems. It came from a Greek word called which means is a treasury of words. Peter Mark Roget's Thesaurus of English Words and Phrases, it is one of the first kind of thesaurus that really appeared in the world in 1852. That was supposed to be the first thesaurus came into the light. Peter Roget is considered to be the father of thesaurus. There are many thesauri are there. Now actually let us, before to that, they have got some different thesauri. What is really been used in indexing systems are, test is one thesaurus which is called Thesaurus of Engineering and Scientific Terms. Then Thesaurofacet, it is a thesaurus and also a faceted classification, both are mixed in that. Then OECD Macro Thesaurus, then UNESCO Thesaurus, then INIS Thesaurus. INIS is the International Nuclear Information System Thesaurus, in order to index the atomic and nuclear energy the documents. A MESH is a medical subject headings list. Rather it is a kind of we can say it is a misnomer. It is not a subject headings list, it is a thesaurus. It has been popularized with that name only, MESH, medical subject headings list. It is a thesaurus and not a subject headings list. There is a difference between those two, we will try to discuss little later. Now there is also INSPEC also has got a thesaurus called INSPEC thesaurus. There are multiple many thesauri there. There are multilingual thesauri there. There are monolingual thesauri are there. Now thesaurus is a treasury or storehouse of knowledge, like a dictionary or encyclopedia. This is what Oxford English Dictionary defines. But what we are going to really use in our own indexing systems or information storage systems is something different. Thesaurus is a terminological control device, that is what exactly we are talking about. Used in translating from the natural language of the documents, indexers and users into a more constrained system of language. This is what. So, thesaurus is a more constrained, restricted language, unlike what normally we have been talking about the dictionary. Like, it is a vocabulary control tool used in indexing language. It is so organized that the a priori relationships between the concepts, like broader terms, narrower terms, etc., are made explicit. So in this, what normally happens is, in a dictionary we have got only an alphabetical listing of all the words and their meanings, etc., could be really found in that. But in a thesauri, it's a kind of a classificatory order is there, a kind of a logical order is there. What we try to say is, it's a kind of a concept terms, like science, the physical science, physics, then optics, then infrared rays. So this is how the flow. These are all one is the kind of having a narrower scope, the other one is having much narrower scope. So this kind of broader, narrower concept terms or listing is there. There is a kind of hierarchical relationships. There is a kind of other kinds of relationships are displayed in a thesauri. That's what exactly. Now what we said, a priori already existing, the relationship between the concepts is really notified by the some kind of symbols called broader term, narrower term, related terms, etc., etc. These are used in thesauri. So thesauri is honestly, in a simple meaning, is treasure of words, but it's a terminology control tool. It's a kind of indexing, the tool that is really used to control the kind of terms to be used as standard terms in indexing systems. That's what exactly we say thesaurus means. It can be used or intended to be used both in indexing stage, at the same time also at the search stage. This is the kind of the advantage of it. While we are indexing the documents, we can use thesaurus. While a user searching for information also, you can really use these thesaurus in order to really have a kind of matching of the key terms with the database, the key terms, how the documents are really been indexed using a particular kind of indexing tool or control vocabulary tool. So that's what both the places it can be really used. So these are the two stages where the thesauri can be used, and it also in the same way the passage from the query stage in anticipating words or terms to the actual keywords. The thesaurus is a list of simple, independent, individual, partially or pre-coordinate terms, often referred to as descriptors. Descriptors are really found in thesauri. Thesauri is a plural word, thesaurus is a singular word. So thesauri means more than one thesaurus. Like in thesauri, we are really going to have descriptors. They are all simple, single, independent, partially coordinated, pre-coordinated terms will be found in thesaurus. And there is a kind of relationships are really been exhibited, shown, mapped in that, indicating the same time these words can be used, unused. These are broader words, narrower words, related terms. So when I say unused means they are not the standard terms. Used term means they are the standard terms. These are the broader terms, these are narrow terms. Of course, all of them they can be really used as index terms only. This is what exactly that kind of display will be there in thesaurus. Thesaurus also uses certain symbols. This is what we said. UF is used for, NT narrower terms. This is a broader term, something like physics. Optics is a narrower term. So like that, it's a related term. Say for example, men and women, that can be related terms. Okay. So like that, this is what exactly the concept terms will be there, which are really been shown against that. This is RT, this is BT, this is NT, this is used for, etc. When I say used for means instead of a particular the generally known term to a standard term. So this is what exactly that requires a kind of cross referencing, that you should be able to really provide some. This is we call it as a syntactics. Okay, we will come to that. So the purpose of thesaurus is to provide a map of a given field of knowledge to help both indexers and also searchers. So how the knowledge is really been mapped in a particular subject can be really known through thesaurus. Okay. It also helps to provide a kind of standard vocabulary for the subject. Sometimes what happens, there is a kind of close relationship is there between the thesaurus and also the classification schemes. So therefore the same, the class number is there, what exactly its equivalent standard term we are really using in the vocabulary tool, like the thesaurus like. So therefore the one tool that has come, Thesauro Facet, it's both a thesaurus and also Facet classification scheme, to provide a system of references between the terms which will ensure that only one term from form a set of synonyms are used as descriptors. Now say for example, I can tell you international relations, foreign relations, external relations, external affairs, they are all more or less synonymous terms. Of all these things, say for example, we are using international relations as a standard term, that is a kind of controlled vocabulary. The remaining terms are unused terms. They are the rejected terms, but people really know about them. Therefore, what really happens is you need to develop a kind of system of referencing system. So people may be approaching external relations, external affairs. Then external affairs or external relations C, I think you can really find this particular subject information on international relations, which we have really used as a kind of the controlled or the restricted language, the standard language term that you should really use and find to get your information like. Now they represent a unity concept, and it is arranged generally alphabetically it is arranged, but of course it displays the hierarchical, the relationships or broader narrower term relationships or related terms, etc. will be listed. The quality of thesaurus mainly depends on the semantic definition of the terms. Semantic is this concept relationships, subject relationships, that will be really displayed in the thesaurus. There are basically two types of the structures the relations can be there. One is hierarchical relationships in the terms, and then non-hierarchical relationships in the terms. Just let us see is something like genus species relationship, that we can really indicate that hierarchical relationship. Something like father and a child. Okay. Now, natural sciences, then physics, then light radiation, the narrowed than that is spectral distribution. Further down that narrowed scope is light transmission. Further narrows, that kind of the display can always be there. That is what exactly. So, the broader term is natural sciences, that is called BT1 broader term. Then broader term 2 is physics. Then further physics, the next narrow term could be the light radiation. Down that the next narrow term could be spectral distribution. So, this is how the hierarchical display, this is can be always found in the structure of the thesaurus. So, this is hierarchical description. The same thing can also be found also in classification schemes also. Let us say 535, let us say optics is there. How it has really come is 5 from natural sciences, 53 is physics or 530 in UDC, 53 in UDC and 530 in DDC. Now 535.2 further the kind of narrower word is the light radiation. So then further narrow term is 535.23, it is the spectral distribution. This is how the hierarchical display can be found in the hierarchy in the thesaurus. This is one kind of things. Then associative or affinitive relationships are there. Radar is related to antenna, but they are not one and the same, but their relationship is there. Hole and drill, probably you are drilling for the oil wells or the bore wells, but hole is a smaller one, but there is a relationship is there. So algebra is there, the related terms are arithmetic, geometry, trigonometry, they are all related concepts, but they are not one and the same. So like that ferrous metals is non-ferrous metals, they have a relationship is there, they are not one and the same. This is what exactly we call it as associative or affinity relationships can also be found in the thesaurus structure. The non-hierarchical relationships, these are of two types. One is preferential relationships, something like what we can say referring from the forbidden or a rejected term to a descriptor or the term that is really used as a standard term. So, from the rejected terms, unused term to the used terms, from the unused term to the standard terms. So, we will be really using some kind of the indicator symbols like what UF or something like that. Okay. C also used for this kind of the jargon is really used. For example, fiberglass, use instead of fiberglass, glass fiber, that is a kind of word that is always used. So this is what as far as the thesaurus is concerned. Then the other one is what we can say is associative or affinity relationship. Just now I really shown to you the related concept, like hardness is also related to softness. Okay. This is how it goes on, something like father is related to a son. So this is a kind of genetic relationship. So education related to educational learning, they are not exactly same, but their relationship is there. Teaching or learning, there is a kind of relationship is there. So these kind of things what we call as associative or affinity relationships are there. So the most important aspect is there is a kind of difference between subject headings and thesaurus, that is to be correctly understood. Now thesaurus is used, what we can really say is is a list of the independent isolated terms are there in thesaurus. But coming to point of subject headings, the subjects are really given, mostly multiple terms are used to indicate the subject is found in subject headings. A complete subject heading is really there. So these subject headings are meant for use in the pre-coordinate indexing systems, whereas thesaurus is used for indexing in post-coordinate indexing systems. And usually C and C also references can be found in subject headings. I think this is mostly what we can really say is from broader term to narrow term is really used in subject headings, but here it can be in either way. From broader term to narrow term, from narrow term to broader term can also be really found in that. But in the recent past, what is happening is there is a kind of the notation what is used, or the kind of concept display in both subject headings and thesaurus is coming very close to each one another. The differences are getting patched up like. So, now the thesaurus is used in both the stages. At the stage of what we can really say is constructing a index file. Of course, we do not really coordinate them, but we really put independent terms only in the database, where the searcher will really be using them, combining them and getting whatever information he really wants, you can really get from there. Now, but when coming to subject headings, now this is really used only at the input stage, at the indexing stage only, but thesaurus is used in both the stages like. Okay. So, this is how thesaurus is a very important tool as far as the using in post coordinate indexing systems, and whereas subject headings list is nothing but it is really used in pre coordinate systems. We will try to learn about that little later. Now, the subject heading lists they really cover the composite or complex subject headings which are really been pre-prepared and given to the users. We have been using in our libraries the Sears list of subject headings, the library of subject headings. They really give a kind of entire subject they configure, or they really prepare different terms, they combine them, integrate them, they prepare a kind of the subject heading which is really comprising of multiple concepts in majority cases. But in post coordinated systems like thesaurus, what is really been, we will really be finding only single independent isolate concept terms are there, which can be really merged or combined, integrated according to the choice of the user. So, what subjects, what concepts you really want to say, you combine them and then you can really search the database. So, that is what as far as thesaurus and subject headings are really concerned.